Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Kira and yes, I'm still a little bit sick, as you can probably hear from my voice. A little bit more nasally than usual, but hopefully it's not too jarring throughout this video. As you can see from the title, today we're doing a good old-fashioned Q&A. I've had this channel for about 3 months now and I thought, you know what? It's time for you to get to know me a little bit better and just answer your burning questions about colouring. I've kind of categorized the questions into 2 separate categories. The first category is all to do with colouring and the second is more personal questions, just to get to know me a little bit better. So I'll leave the questions with the time codes down below in the description so you can hop between questions if you'd like, if you want to know specific things. Now, all of these questions that I'm answering come from you guys. I asked for some questions on my community tab here on YouTube, as well as on my Instagram, and some of these questions are really great, especially like the personal ones. You guys came through with some really hilarious questions for me to answer. But yes, starting off with the colouring questions. The first question I have here is, do you have starter pencil recommendations? If you've been on this channel since the beginning, you'll know that pretty much the first 8 months of my colouring journey, I exclusively coloured with Brute Funer pencils, and I still believe they are a great starter pencil. I'll have the set that I own linked in my Amazon storefront in the description box, because if you can create amazing pages with budget pencils, when you go to Prismacolors or Polychromos or any of those higher end brands, you're gonna find switching to those so easy. Whereas if you start with a high end product, you could easily fall into the trap of letting the product do all the work rather than using your actual skill set. I also recently tried out the Artex pencils and I've been loving these as well. They're definitely not as budget friendly as the Brute Funers, but if you're willing to spend that little bit extra more money, these are also a great pencil to invest in. How do you come up with your color combinations? Do you have some go-to combos? This is a hard question for me to answer because I feel like most of the time I wing it. I really do want to start getting into the habit now of writing down my favorite color combinations so that I have, you know, a good list to go to. But most of the time what I do is I think of a color that I want on my page, or I'll look at my swatch chart and see what's calling out to me. And usually I'll pick a color, I'll use that as the mid-tone in the color combination, and then I'll choose a corresponding shadow color and a highlight color. So, you know, a slightly darker pencil and a slightly lighter pencil, and that's pretty much it. Obviously, you can have some really in-depth color combinations where you have several different colors in one, and often I get my inspiration from Rita Berman for those color combinations or other colorists. But really, I think it's just experimenting, having some fun, looking at some reference images, and the more you color, the more combinations you'll find and some more favorites you'll find as well. How do you get rid of the black lines in your pictures? Yes, a question that I ask myself sometimes as well. When I was first starting out trying to remove the lines from my coloring pages, I started off using gel pen. I used the white Signo gel pen, which seems to be a favorite among many in the colorist community. However, I just found it was just not a great pencil for me and my pencil brands. Perhaps it's because I was using Brute Funers, I don't know. Probably because I have a heavy hand as well when it comes to coloring. I use quite a lot of pressure, so I often found that when I was coloring over the top of the gel pen, it would scratch off. So my go-to nowadays is using acrylic paint pens. I'm still trying to find the perfect one. I think we all are. The best I've found are Artex. I've been using the 3mm tip ones. That's quite a thick tip, but if I need a finer line, I'll just grab a really fine paintbrush and use the paint from the tip of the pen and apply that to the page. And I've also been using my white Posca paint pen. It's not the most opaque paint pen that I've ever tried. So if you're just looking to make the lines a little bit more subtle, not necessarily completely remove them, I definitely think Posca is a great option. I've actually been meaning to try, there's this method that I saw Barbara Colors, Barbara Colors. I think that's her YouTube and Instagram name. I'll put it on the screen anyway. She has a video here on YouTube where she literally covered over an entire coloring page with whitewash and then went over the top of it with her pencils. And that's something I'm really curious of trying, because obviously going over the whitewash, you pretty much just end up with really faint lines afterwards. You don't see the really thick black lines of the coloring page. So that's something I want to try, but I don't know, it's really scary not having the safety net of the lines there. I'm also thinking of using a variety of different colored acrylic paint pens and using those to get rid of all the details on a page, so it's almost like a blank canvas of color and then you go over the top with shading. If you'd like to see me try that out in a video, let me know. I just feel like it could go horribly wrong, which is why I've been putting it off. Quite a few people asked me this question. Can you show us your coloring area / how you organize and store your supplies? The short answer is no, because I don't have an area and I don't really have an organization / storage system at the moment. Basically, my partner and I live in quite a little small flat, I suppose you could call it. And I just like bring my little box of coloring supplies with me everywhere I tend to color. Sometimes I color at the kitchen table, sometimes I color on the floor, sometimes I color on this couch here. But at the end of this year, or possibly the beginning of next year, we're just seeing how the timeline goes, my partner and I are moving and I'm going to have a completely dedicated space to coloring. I am so freaking excited to create my own little coloring space, and I'm just gonna go absolutely type A crazy. So once I can have my own little dedicated area, I think it's just going to make coloring just that much more enjoyable for me. And I'm definitely gonna do a little vlog of showing you how I set everything up and create my own little coloring sanctuary. So stay tuned for that at the end / beginning of next year. What is a medium that you have never worked with before that you'd like to explore? Okay, so I have my eye on 2 different supplies that I really want to purchase, but I know I can't purchase both at the same time because they're both on the more expensive side. I really can't decide whether I should purchase the full set of Inktense or a full set of Neo colors. The Neo colors are a lot more expensive, but I just see so many amazing backgrounds with them. But then Inktense, I feel like are a lot more versatile because I could actually use them for coloring things rather than just for backgrounds. Let me know in the comments below, what should I do? Should I go with Inktense first or Neo Color 2s? At the moment, I'm leaning towards the Inktense, but let me know what you think. And yes, I do want the full set because I have full set syndrome. So yes, those are 2 mediums that I really want to try that I've never tried before. Okay, this one here was definitely the most asked question. Why did I start / what drew me to coloring? Basically, at the beginning / middle of last year, I was severely suffering from burnout. I had a gazillion and one things on my plate. I was struggling to keep up. I was making all these commitments that I didn't need to be making. And it got to the point where I was just so miserable that I had to quit everything. I quit my job, quit all the external commitments I'd been making, and I just stopped doing everything because I just couldn't. And I've always been an extremely creative human being. I've always loved art, even though I never really pursued it throughout my lifetime. For some reason, it was calling to me. I was like, I want to start painting. I want to start drawing. I want to start doing all these things. And so whilst I was having all this time off, I was scrolling on Pinterest heaps and heaps to find like lots of art, inspiration and stuff like that. And then coloring pages started popping up on my Pinterest. And I was going, oh, what is this? Why is this page showing up several times but in different colorways? And so I dove more and more into that. I went onto YouTube and found Sarah Renee Clark. And I kind of just started delving more and more into the world. I found Rooms of Wonder by Johanna Basford, started coloring in that, started coloring in Small Victories, started posting, and snowball effect. Now here we are. Obviously, that's a very shortened version of the story, but this next question can help me sort of add on to that. What are the benefits of coloring to me? Oh, I can't tell you how much more of a happier human being I am now that I found coloring, which it sounds so silly because I think I still have this little mental block in my head that I'm like, coloring is just for children. It's not an actual thing, but it so isn't. I mean, look at this community. This community is full of adults who have found such a passion for turning lines on a page into these gorgeous artworks. I'm someone who, since from a young age, has struggled with a lot of anxiety and bouts of depression, and I feel like a lot of us in the coloring community have, which is why we've been drawn to this hobby. But when I'm coloring and I'm focusing on a page and I'm focusing on shading and creating color combinations and bringing a page to life, it's like my mind goes quiet. I'm able to focus on one thing and the stress of life just seems to fall away a little bit. I've always been someone who could never really meditate, but coloring for me has become almost my meditation practice every day. It's an act of mindfulness, and it also gives me a sense of purpose and fulfillment as well, which is what I was really lacking at the beginning of last year. I didn't know why I was doing anything. Everything felt senseless and purposeless. So when I started working on coloring pages and, working on a page for several days in a row, I think as well, like there's something so gratifying about it. And I still don't think I'll ever be able to put into words what coloring does for me, but it just makes me such a happier human being. I don't think I'll ever be able to put into words how much coloring has changed my life. This one here, were you artsy before you started coloring / have you studied art? I've never done any sort of formal art training besides, art class at school, but I've definitely always been artsy and sort of had a natural flair for it, I suppose. That's not me like trying to brag or anything, but I think some people are just born with natural innate talents that they pick up super easily. Artsy sort of creative stuff has always been that for me. Like my partner, he can do anything athletic, like absolutely anything. He could pick it up. He's so coordinated, could pick up any sport. And me, I could not do any of that to save my life. I could probably work hours and hours on it every day and I would still be mediocre. So I think we all have our thing, and mine just happens to be arts related. Part of me does wish I had studied art, past primary school, but I often find that when I take something I like and put it into an academic setting, I lose my passion for it. That's obviously something mental up here, but yeah, I don't think maybe I'd be as passionate about it as I am now if I'd actually studied it and had to have exams and everything like that. How often do you color? Do you color every day? And how long does it take you to finish a page? All right, I do pretty much color every single day. I mean, I think there was actually a couple of days ago where I couldn't color 2 days in a row and I felt incomplete in my soul, but most of the time I will color at least a little bit every day. Look, honestly, every day and every week is different. Our lives are constantly changing, right? So I would say I color for at least 1 hour a day, probably on average maybe 2 hours. So I'd say every week I'm coloring between 7 to 14 hours. That sounds like a lot of time, but like it doesn't feel like I do much coloring at all. And then in regards to a page, my coloring has definitely got a lot more in depth over the last couple of months, so it takes me a lot longer to finish a page than at the beginning. I'd probably say 5-ish days, maybe a bit longer if it's a big intricate page, maybe a bit shorter if it's an easier page, but yeah, I'd say around 5 days. Would you consider starting a how-to series, i.e. how to do backgrounds, houses, trees, etc.? I think that is my ultimate goal with this channel. I just really want to help people learn and get really invested and enjoy coloring just because it's brought me so much joy, so I want it to bring joy to others as well. If you watched my last video that I posted, you'll know that I put in a little Easter egg there that I might be working on a background series. May or may not be my next video. And yeah, I would just love to start more series on my channel. If you have any videos in particular or like any series ideas that you'd like me to do, let me know in the comments below and I'll definitely add them to my content idea list. This question is something I always want to ask the colorists that I watch on YouTube, and it's, do you watch or listen to anything while coloring? Yes, always 100%. Most of the time I'm watching other colorists' YouTube channels. That's generally what I'm watching. Often at night, I'll sit on the couch with my partner. We're currently rewatching Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and I'll do some coloring at the same time. So that's a TV show that I sometimes have on in the background. And I also listen to audiobooks as well. At the moment, I'm listening to the second book in A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. It's Good Girl, Bad Blood, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, I definitely think my favorite thing to do is watch other colorists' videos because it just feels like, I don't know, a little coloring session together. Is there a book you would love to finish coloring one day? I mean, I think all of us hope that one day we have the dream we could finish all of our coloring books. But at the moment, I've done the most coloring in Small Victories by Johanna Basford. So I think one day I would love to complete that book because that is the book that got me really hooked on adult coloring. But if you saw my whole video, you'll know that I'm also loving Maria Troll's new book, Shooting Star, and I could definitely see myself coloring every page in that. Have I even colored one page in it yet? No, but I could see myself finishing that book one day. Who is your favorite artist? Now, even though Johanna Basford is the artist that got me into adult coloring, I think my favorite artist of all time is Rita Berman. I just love coloring in her books, and I just find that my coloring just always turns out the best in her pages. I don't know what's in her illustration style, but me and her, we're like two peas in a pod. My coloring brain, her illustrating brain, they just make sense together like peanut butter and jelly. So this is going to be the last question that I answer in the coloring section. What are your top tips for adult coloring beginners? I have written out a whole list here because I didn't want to go into this question blindly. Okay, so my first recommendation is to follow color alongs and try to replicate other colorists' work. This is what I did at the beginning of my coloring journey, and I think it really helped me create a solid foundation as quickly as possible. Obviously, if you're posting your work on Instagram or social media, make sure that you're giving credit to the original colorist's work. But I found so much joy in seeing someone else's pages and trying to recreate it myself with my supplies. But I seriously just learned so much from doing that. And we all know I'm a massive fan of Karen from My Colorful Country Life. I followed so many of her color alongs and just tried to replicate so many of her pages, and I think that's just really helped me progress faster with my coloring style and technique. My second tip is don't overwhelm yourself with too many books and supplies to start with. I started off with one pencil set, 2 coloring books, and that was it for months. Obviously, I've got a lot more than that now, but it can get really overwhelming as a newbie if you have too many things to choose from. So I highly recommend sticking to 1 or 2 pencil sets and 1 or 2 books and just really focusing on those things and enjoy bringing those pages to life, and then slowly build your collection up bit by bit. Now, this third tip is kind of obvious, but I feel like it's not always obvious, and that is to buy books that suit your personal interests. When you color a page that actually features stuff that you love in your everyday life, it makes the coloring experience so much more enjoyable. For instance, I picked up Rooms of Wonder first because I was so into interior design at the time, and there's so many rooms in that book. I then picked up Rita Berman's Asia book because I love Japan, and anything sort of Asian inspired really interests me. And then recently I've picked up a lot of animal books because I'm such an animal lover. Yeah, I think the more that you purchase books that feature your everyday interests, the more elevated your coloring experience and the joy you'll receive from it will be. This fourth tip is actually something I wish I'd done, but I didn't do, which is diversify my coloring book collection. What I mean by this is don't get stuck in only purchasing from one illustrator. At the beginning of my channel, I literally had 4 Johanna Basford books and then 1 Rita Berman book and 1 Lainey Dow book, and that was it. And I really wish I dipped my toes into different illustrators from the beginning because I think I got really stuck in coloring in Johanna Basford's style. But yeah, I just personally wish that I had purchased a greater variety of books at the beginning of my coloring journey as I was building my collection. This is a tip that I know is very obvious, but always swatch your supplies. Nothing looks the same as it does on the barrel, and having a swatch chart is just so freaking handy. You can easily see what colors will go together, what will be a good shadow, midtone, and highlight color. I also love having all my swatches in the same book because I can easily compare my pencil sets together and go, okay, so which pencil set is going to be best for this page? I need lots of blues, then I'll go with this set here, which has a great range of blues. That kind of vibe. What tip are we up to? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Tip number 6. At the beginning of your coloring journey, I really recommend just sticking to 2 to 3 pencil color combinations. Honestly, I pretty much stick to that now. I know there's a lot of colorists out there that do like 5 to 6 pencil color blends, but if you can master a 2 to 3 pencil color blend at the beginning of your coloring journey, then you can slowly start adding more and figure out what colors you need in between those 3 main ones. If you try anything too advanced from the get-go, you're gonna get frustrated and you're gonna quit. Tip number 7 is to utilize pre-made color palette resources. I know a lot of people can look at a page and go, oh my god, I don't know what colors to put on the page, close it, and then just not try to attempt it. So color palettes really help with this. I touched on how to find different color palettes in my how to choose colors for a coloring page video, so definitely go check that out to go more in depth in this topic. But Pinterest is seriously my best friend. I will look up color palettes all the time to just get some inspiration, not necessarily to follow the color palette to a T, but just to get inspiration, a starting point, and help me get some color on the page, because I think that is the hardest part, is starting the page. And once you get started, you kind of get into the flow. So definitely utilize Pinterest, get your hands on the color cubes by Sarah Renee Clark. I know they're very popular. Anything that can help take some decisions out of the coloring process at the beginning of your journey will just lighten the load a little bit. And my final tip is a corny one, but it is important, which is always have fun and don't compare yourself to others. I think no matter how long you've been coloring for, this is something that will always creep up onto you, especially if you're a part of the social media aspect of coloring. It can be so easy to compare yourself to others and to think, I'm not doing a good enough job, I should just give up, I should not do this anymore. Everyone is on their own journey, everyone is at a different point in their lives, and no one has lived the same life, so there's no point in comparing your life and your skill set to someone else's. It's also important to remember that coloring is supposed to be fun. It's not supposed to be serious. It's just color on a page at the end of the day. No matter how a page turns out, as long as you had fun, that is all that matters. So that's the coloring portion of the Q&A done. I was not expecting to talk that long, but who am I kidding? I can blab on a lot, so really I'll be surprised. But yes, now we can get into the personal questions. These ones definitely won't be as long. They're more straight to the point. It feels weird talking about myself and not about coloring, but here we go. How old are you? I am 27 years old. I turned 27 in July. What is your zodiac sign? I am a Cancer. However, I am on the cusp of a Cancer Leo, so I definitely find myself sort of dipping into both of them. I'm definitely a homebody and quite the sensitive and emotional human being like a Cancer. I can definitely be a little bit wild when I want to be, so yeah, that's where my Leo comes out. Question number 3, what part of Australia are you from? I was technically born in Sydney in New South Wales, but when I turned 7, we moved up to the Gold Coast and Queensland, and I currently live between the Gold Coast and Brisbane and Queensland, but my partner and I will be moving to the Gold Coast at the end of the year again because we both just love it down there. That's where we both grew up for the main part. So we're going back to our childhood roots because, yeah, we just feel really at peace and at home on the Gold Coast. Do you have any pets? Yes, I do. I have 2 pets. I have 2 gorgeous cats. I have one 3-year-old called Willow. I'll put a picture of her here. And then we also have a 9-month-old who is an absolute nutcase. His name is Archie. He is a very fluffy, tabby-like thing. They're both rescues, so have no clue what their actual breeds are. And we love them. Question number 5, what is your job? Yes, lots of people want to know this. I'm a theme park performer. So I host shows at the theme park. I get inside the suit characters. It's a very hot and demanding job, but it's worth it at the end of the day when you see the little smiles on the kids' faces. Number 6, do you like to travel / where have you been? And what is your dream travel destination? Even though I'm a massive homebody, I do love traveling. I would say if I was like away for longer than 2 weeks, I'd probably get a little bit anxious and antsy, but 2 weeks would be my ideal vacation. And I've been lucky enough that I've been to a lot of places because my parents took me lots of different spots when I was younger. I was an only child, so I feel like we had, you know, a little bit more finances to spare because there was just one of me. I've been to Japan, Hawaii, Fiji, Canada, New York, LA, and obviously quite a few places within Australia. And I have so many dream places I would love to go to on my bucket list. Iceland to see the Northern Lights is a big one. I also want to go to Bora Bora. I want to stay on one of those little huts on top of the water. That would be goals. And honestly, I want to go back to a lot of the places I've already been, but go with my partner and go not as a child because I feel like that changes the experience. I feel like I've been talking for so long, so I'm just going to answer 2 more questions. What do you like to do for fun when you're not coloring? To be honest, my life is pretty much full of working, coloring, and editing at the moment. I don't have much other free time. Any other free time I spend with my family or my partner. But some other things I love to do every now and again is I love sewing. I picked that up during the pandemic because my mum is actually a professional seamstress, and so she taught me during the pandemic, and I went absolutely crazy for that during that time. I sometimes do a little bit of knitting. I am a massive reader. That is actually a massive hobby of mine. I really love reformer Pilates. I don't do it very often because it's quite exy, but if I could do reformer Pilates classes like 3 to 4 times a week, that would be absolute goals. What else do I do? I feel like maybe I could also say traveling could be a hobby of mine, hopefully soon within the future. I'm actually in the midst of planning my wedding. We're getting married early to mid next year, so once we're married, I think then we'll be in our traveling era, but we're focusing on the wedding at the moment. And this last question, I had to include it because I thought it was hilarious. Where do you get your sweaters from? I should have worn one of them in this video, but because we're going into spring now, it's not as cold. During winter, I literally solely wear sweaters, which is why you only have seen me wear sweaters in all of my videos. Actually, that brings me to another hobby, is because a lot of my sweaters are from op shops or thrift stores, depending on where you're from. And so I really do love op shopping. That's something that I love to do. Otherwise, I think they're either, from op shops, Kmart, or Target. She's a budget gal. They're all the questions that I'm going to answer in this video. If you enjoyed this video, definitely let me know by giving this video a thumbs up. Maybe I can do another one of these videos in a few months' time. Put any questions in the comments below if there's any other questions you'd like me to answer. And as always, happy coloring, my friends. Have a good day, have a good life, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!